Hello guys, it's me Butterfly Spirit 314. So it is midnight, but I decided that I would do this live right now because I've been having like these thoughts in my head about something I want to make a video about. And so I decided I would just go ahead and get right into making the video, even though it's late. So guys, in the title of today's video, the title of the video is about how listening helps us relate to people. And for many of us, we may find that we may not understand other people around us. You know, we sit there and we hear what people have to say, but we still don't understand, why we may find ourselves not getting people, okay? And the thing is that it's all about whether we're hearing people or whether we're truly listening to people. It's all about that. So if we're hearing people, things that they're saying to us, we may hear bits and pieces what they say, depending on what's going on. You know, we can hear people complaining about something. We can hear somebody, we can hear them talking about something that we're not even interested in and things and stuff. And we just may find it where we're just like, we completely zone out, and many people think they're listening. They think, oh, I'm listening to this person, that person, when I listen to them, they always talk about same old, and stuff. And once this person's talking about the same old, you're like, well, what's the point of me listening to them? You know, but the thing is that if you listen to people, you can start to learn more about them and you can actually start to get who they are as a person. Because the one thing people tell you a lot about is people talk about themselves a lot. They talk about, their interests, they talk about work, they talk about their hobbies. They talk about, how they had a screwed up day. They talk about how they were stuck in traffic. People talk a lot about themselves. And if you listen to people, you're going to start to understand a lot more about people. And this can help you understand why a person may be in a bad mood. Okay. And you'll start to understand it the more you listen to them. If you hear somebody and you instantly zone out because you're not interested, you're not getting the person. You're not receiving the message of what they want to say. And of course, you're not hearing what they're saying and they told you something important or whatnot and you miss it. And then later on, you're surprised they're pissed at you, it's because you weren't listening to them. Okay. Why does listening why does listening even matter? You're like, I've been listening, and other things are more important. Well, the thing is when you listen to people and you hear what a person says, you start to get the person. You start to understand when a person is triggered. You start to understand when a person is going through a bad time. You start to understand how this person grew up, how they see the world, and why the hell it is that they act the way that they do, just by listening to them. And the more effort you put into listening to a person, the more you're going to get to understand that person. And you're going to get to understand, you're going to get answers to questions about this person that maybe you've been wondering, but you didn't really know or understand because you're listening to them. I think one of the things that causes people to really get into disagreements is because of the fact that we're not listening to another person. If they're telling us something, and it can be hard as hell to listen to somebody if they're yelling at you or they're pissed off or they're cursing. Of course, that's not something you want to listen to, right? And if a person raises their tone, one thing you can do is say, hey, I can't listen to you if you're frustrated. Hey, I'm happy to talk to you, but, I want you to calm down. Then we can talk when things are calm. It's fine to say that. Okay. It perfectly is. The thing about listening to people is when you start listening to people and they reveal things about themselves, this helps you connect to them more, you know, because the more interest you show in somebody else, the more they're going to show interest in you. If you think somebody's not listening to you, show interest in that person. Listen to them. Listen to what they have to say. Hear how their day went. You know, hear how maybe they won a game or something, or hear them talk about, goings on in their family or whatever. The more you listen to somebody, the more you start to understand the things that matter to them. The more you're going to understand, you're going to understand their habits. You're going to understand, how they process their emotions. And you're going to start to get them, And I think a lot of times we may not want to listen to people because maybe listening to people, maybe there's things that they're saying to us that we don't want to hear, and we may not want to hear it because we're not prepared to hear it. But the thing is that if we really want to relate to people and connect to people and maybe hopefully dodge arguments or disagreements, why not listen to another person and listen to them when they're calm and collected, not when they're mad, cursing and throwing chairs or doing anything like that, but just listening to them, letting them know in a conversation, giving them your undivided attention, listening to them. Because when you listen to them, you can start to understand them. When you can start to understand them, you can start to have conversations with them about things that they like and that matter to them. And the more you listen to them and show an interest in them, the more they're going to start to show an interest in you, and you're going to start to build a deeper relationship with this person because you're listening to them. And, people, they reveal their weaknesses and stuff. They reveal a lot of things about themselves. And the thing is that when you listen to a person and you hear the things about them, you start to be more accepting of who they are as a person. Not this idea that you've imagined about them, but you start to really take in who this person is. And sometimes when you start to take in who this person is and understand them and their behaviors and all that, you may decide, maybe this person isn't who I thought they were. But if you carry this like imaginary idea of like who this person is and you kind of zone out when they are not talking about things, you may not realize that the person isn't really the best to be around. You know what I mean? So listening, it helps you to decide like, who do you want around you? Who don't you want around you? And if you do want a person around you and you're struggling to get through to them, getting through to them might be as simple as listening to them. Just listen to what they have to say. Ask questions. Don't give them advice. Just be there. And when you do that and you build a deeper relationship with them, then you can bond with them. Then you can start to have a more enjoyable experience with them. And no, it's not going to happen in a day. But eventually you will build a relationship with a person and you'll start to understand their personality. You'll start to understand the reason that they are the way that they are. You'll start to understand why they react to their family the way they do, why they react to their job the way that they do. You'll start to understand more about the person than you have ever have. And that can help you to be more accepting of who they are. And yes, we may want this person to be this amazing person, but sometimes we have to accept that people are human. They make mistakes. They have weaknesses and all that. But I think the most important thing to understand is the more we listen to people, the more we get them. The more we get them, the more I think it is that sometimes the more we get them, the more we can avoid arguments and disagreements because we hurt them. Like, think about a situation with a person where maybe, you have someone in your life that's trying to tell you something like, they ask you to do something, and let's say you zone out and you don't hear what they have to say. Let's say they're asking you to do the laundry or something like that. You do the laundry because they need you to wash their clothes because, they need the clothes washed because they have something else to do, you know. And let's say you zone out, you don't hear them, you go and you do something else. And then here it is later on in the day, they come back and say, hey, um, did you wash my clothes? And then they're like, no. And then they're like, well, I told you this. And you're like, oh, you said that? And then like you feel under attack because they're yelling at you and mad at you because, they wanted you to wash the clothes because they need the clothes to go to an event. You didn't wash them and everything. And it all could have been avoided if you just listened to them, you know? And the thing is, the person's probably not mad at you necessarily because you didn't do the clothes. They're probably more mad at you because maybe they had this expectation you were going to do something and you didn't, and it hurt them that you didn't. And they're more hurt by you not listening to them than it is that you didn't wash the clothes. Because the thing is that for them, they may want to know that you value them enough to help and support them. And when you don't do that, that hurts and that can drive a wedge between the two of you if you don't listen, you know. And how can you avoid it? Well, if you listen to things that people say, you can avoid, you can avoid the headache, and in that moment, if you don't understand something somebody said, ask questions, try to figure out what it is they are and why they want you to do this, and if you can at least say, well, hey, if you can be honest with them and say, hey, I can't wash clothes because, I got to do this and that. Maybe you're busy too. Maybe you guys can come up with something that can prevent the argument where both of you guys can win rather than it just being, rather than arguments always ensuing and happening, Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Bye.